Welcome back to the channel, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at creating this model here, which is a racetrack. Now we're going to be doing this with a sweep, and every time you think about a sweep, think that you need two things. You're going to need a profile, which you see there on the right, and you're going to need some kind of path. And in this case we're going to be creating this as a 3D sketch. So if that's something that you're also interested in, stay tuned. We're going to be doing all of this in Solidworks. Okay, so some of the things we need to understand when we're creating a three-dimensional sketch is that it's kind of weird how you got to create it, right? You have to kind of define a plane, so to say. And we're going to do that by locking certain lines to different axes. And if we do that, then it's going to kind of take that and say, okay, you want to stay on this plane. And you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about when I get into it. But what I'm basically trying to show is that if I wanted to create this here, I can create this on a two-dimensional plane, but remember that we're in a three-dimensional world, so we're going to have to define either the X and Y or X and Z or Y and Z or any form of that kind of fashion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this, and another important thing to do when you're dealing with three-dimensional sketch is always know where your UCS is at. So it's going to be super important for us to know which way is the X-axis, which way is the Y-axis, and which way is the Z-axis. By me doing that, I'll be able to, basically give this drawing some more life to it. Another thing I wanted you to take a look at is that anytime I'm going to define an angle, I'm going to define it from this point. If we're dealing in AutoCAD, you can remember that all of the angles in AutoCAD is a counterclockwise rotation. So if you ever did anything in AutoCAD, positive is counterclockwise. And the same thing is going to happen here. But remember that in the 3D world, you can kind of define things a little bit differently with those angles. But we're going to define them based off of kind of this line here, because this is going to be a good line that we're going to start from. And you can see that all of these numbers are really simple, but the one that I want you to pay attention to is this top one. All of the other ones are created in a two-dimensional, which means either on the X and Y axis, but this one goes up into the air, and I hope you can kind of see it here on this little racetrack here. It's going to fly up into the air. Another thing we can't do, and this model here was made in AutoCAD, where you have different type of curvatures that you can select. Here in the 3D world, we're going to have to define a radius that goes around it. Another thing I want you to pay attention to is that radius. The biggest radius that it can be is got to be half of your smallest space in between two numbers, right? So you can see from, and I'll have to go back and figure out what this distance is, but just as a quick guess here, we can see that from here to here is about 10, right? So that distance is 10 if we subtract it from each other, more or less, because one of them's at an angle and things of that nature. But we're going to try to keep that radius about that number, right? Because remember that if it's a full radius that's going across, well, that means it's going to be half of that number, right? So that number is going to be 5 going that direction and hopefully 5 going that direction. So we're going to do all of this stuff and we're going to define it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create it, and it's going to look rectangular, and then we're going to come back and we're going to put those fillets on it, and then that's going to give it a little bit of curve, but it won't be as smooth as the one that you see here in the 3D model. Okay, so we're going to jump over to SolidWorks here, and I'm going to assume that these dimensions, I guess we can use inches on this one because everything we got, 8.5. These are typically normal numbers for millimeters, so we'll go ahead and, for inches. So we'll go ahead and assume that the units of measurement on this one will be inches, okay? Okay, so here in Inventor, what I'm going to do is click this new icon here. Everything is going to remain the same, except we'll go ahead and change the units at the bottom. So I'm going to assume that, well, I know for sure that we're going to be creating a part here. And I'll just hit the OK button, and then we'll give SolidWorks a little bit of time to load. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change this from millimeters to inches, like I was telling you there in the intro there. So I was click this fly up here. I'll go ahead and tell it that we're going to be using the inch, pound, seconds. And now I'm ready to start creating my part, right? So you can see right now I'm in the sketch Yours may be on the feature tab. Either one of these are fine. So if I'm on the sketch tab, I'm just going to click this drop down here, and then I'm going to go to a 3-dimensional sketch, right? So right now it's saying that, hey, you're going to create a 3-dimensional sketch. Now I will be using the S button on my keyboard a lot more, mainly because that's just one of those quick references. That way I don't have to come all the way up here and find things. Now I'm saying all the way like it's a far distance, but it's really not. So I can do a line, and right now you can see that it's having the word XY beside me, right? So it's assuming that I'm creating something, and I'm looking down here at my UCS on the XY. I'm just going to go ahead and sketch my first line out, right? I'm just going to say, hey, it's a distance that goes this way. Let's go ahead and hit the escape button. I'm going to select this line here, and then I'm going to tell it that, hey, I don't want you to be on the X and Y plane. I want you to be on the Z axis. And once again, I'm staying with my UCS down here in the corner. So I'm just going to say, hey, stick along the Z axis. And when I do that, you're going to see that this line will click and go to the Z axis. Okay. Let's go ahead and put a dimension on this. So I'll just type in S, go ahead and click my smart dimension here. And then I'll go ahead and place a distance on here, which should be 23. Okay. So there's our first line that we created. Next, I'll come back to the line command. And now, once again, I'm on the XY plane, right? If I can kind of change which plane it's kind of defining on, and I'm going to refer back to my UCS here. I want to be on this XZ plane. Let's go ahead and escape out of the line command real quick. I'm just going to hit the S button on the space bar on my keyboard, and then I'm going to select this top plane here. So when I click here, it's going to automatically adjust to my views, right? Or it should switch to this XZ plane. All right, let's go back to the line command. So let's go ahead and hit S. I'll click on the line here. I'll go here. Once I click on this point, you can see that it did change. And like I said before, I'm just going to kind of freehand sketch a few more lines here. So I'm going this direction. I'm going to kind of swing it this direction a little bit. And then I'm going to swing up this direction. Okay. Next, I'm also going to go ahead and set up myself a midpoint line. So once again, I'm hitting that S button, and I want you to kind of get used to that. I'll select this midpoint line here. I'll select on that line there, and then I'm just going to send it going across this direction, right? And it's trying to track whatever my other one is. I'll go ahead and click here. I can see that I want it to be on the X-axis, so all I have to do is select this line and say, hey, get along that X-axis. Okay. Let's go ahead and make this line reference as well. So I'm just going to do one click on it, and I'll select here. And me, this is just one of those things that I'm so used to doing. I love to put a dimension on everything. So I will go ahead and put a dimension on this line here. Now, this dimension is irrelevant to the whole shape of this. So if we make this number whatever we want, and I'll make mine 30, it doesn't matter, right? Okay. Let's go ahead and put a few more dimensions on here. So let's go and say, hey, this one has a distance, and we already have our first distance on here. Now, I don't see it anymore. Okay, there it is, of 23. I'm going to go ahead and place my next dimension that's on here. Let's go ahead and rotate this around a hair, just so it kind of looks in the same orientation as our drawing here. Okay, this one has an angle of 20 degrees. All right, so when I go ahead and place my angle onto here, I'm going to select this line here, and then I'll select this line here. Go ahead and click here. And we have our angle sitting at 20 degrees, right? So it figured that out and said, okay, so far so good. Now I need to give this line a length, okay? We're going to do that simply by putting a dimension onto this line, and this one has a dimension length of 18. All right. So we have those two things done. We're going to next define our line here. So I'm going to go ahead and specify the angle first. I'm just going to put an angle from here to here. Once I click here, this one has an angle of 91. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and put my dimension onto here. Let's go ahead and take another look at this. Now that I have it kind of rotated in the right orientation, remember I'll hit the space bar. And let's take a look at it from, let's see which plane. that plane there. Okay, and it flipped it around, of course. Let me give one more flip here. And I'm just trying to get this thing oriented the right way so you can kind of see it the way I'm looking at it here in the actual documentation. Okay, I see what plane I need. I need this plane here. Okay, so you can see that this angle is indeed showing a 91. Let's go ahead and put another dimension on here. And it's going to have a height of 28. So I'll go ahead and place this dimension here. And then we have another angle on this line that's sitting at 135. So I'll go ahead and select this line here. Now this one, you're going to have to kind of use a little bit of your imagination on how you figure out this angle. You can see that it's going this direction. So if you remember all of your angles, 135 happens to be a 45-degree angle, just going in that direction. So this angle here is set to 45. And it looks like it's kind of running a little bit slow now. Okay, there we go. So I have that line set at 45 degrees. Let's go ahead and place another dimension on it. And this dimension here happens to be sitting at, and it still wanted to give me an angle dimension. This one is sitting at 23. All right, come on, wake up with me. Sometimes that dimension button will stick to me, and then sometimes it don't want to act right. There we go, 23. Okay. All right, so we have about 90% of our drawing done now. Now we need to go ahead and put the one that's going up at the angle. So I'm just going to kind of lay this down and turn it around here. Go ahead and select the space button, and then I'm going to select this angle here. And for some strange reason, it wants to go kind of backwards on me today. But anyway, all I'm trying to do is get to this plane here. And if it goes the other direction, okay, that's what I wanted to do. Now I need to create this line that's kind of going up at this angle. So I'm just going to draw a regular line here from this endpoint. You can see it switched over to the YZ plane, which if you look at your UCS, that's kind of what I want. So I'll go ahead and select here. All right. Now this is where it's going to get difficult because we know that we have a dimension going one direction that's at 10 going up, and we have another number that's going 50 going out. So I'm going to have to create that shape by using some rectangular components. So I'm just going to draw a line going up to here. And I'm just going to kind of over exaggerate this a little bit, and I'm just going to bring a line here. Okay. This line here, I'll go ahead and select. I'm just going to say, hey, go ahead and stick along that y-axis for me. And then I'll go ahead and hit escape on that. And I select this line here and tell it to send it along the z-axis. Okay. You see both of those will stand up. Another thing that I'm going to do is I'll select this line here. Hold down the shift button and select the other line here. And we're going to make both of these lines construction, right? So we're just going to make them construction geometry. Now let's go ahead and put our dimensions on here. So we're going to do a dimension from here. And this one is going to go up a height of 10. And I can also refer you back to, I've done this video using Inventor. The kind of same principles apply to a certain degree here, but this is kind of how you have to create some of these rectangular components, right? So there's my 10 and there's my 50. And now you can see that here is my three-dimensional shape. Let's go ahead and hit the space bar, and I'll just tell it to go to an isometric here. And now you can see my three-dimensional shape here, right? So it kind of comes around and it goes up, and you can see also that it's fully defined. All right, so let's go ahead and hit the exit sketch button here. Now remember, we're going to be setting up a sweep. Always think two things, right? We need a path. We already have our path defined. Next thing we're going to need is a profile, right? So I'm going to create just a regular 2D sketch. So I'm going to select here. Now I need to be on the plane that's sitting where this origin is at. So I'm just going to expand here. And then I'm just going to highlight the plane that's going on that one. And in my case, it's going to be the front plane. So once I select that, it should spin it around. Okay. Now I'm going to try to draw this as best as I can. It's kind of a little wacky, and sometimes when you're creating three-dimensional sketch profiles like this, it will get wacky. But I'm just going to kind of take it a little bit slow, and hopefully I can create this without too much confusion is my goal here. So I'm just going to send a line going straight across here. Let's go ahead and put a dimension on here. So just go ahead and hit the S button, go ahead and put my smart dimension, and go ahead and click here. And we're going to make this 8.42. All right, so that's my length going across. Let's zoom in a little bit more. I'm going to create another line. It's going straight across here. And the length of this line is going to be set to 3. All right. It's kind of driving me crazy sometimes when I think I'm in a command and I realize I'm not in the command. All right, so I'll go ahead and find the midpoint along this line, select it, hold down the shift button, go find the midpoint on this line, select that, let go of the shift button, and then tell them that, hey, go ahead and make those vertical of each other. So that'll keep those two in line with each other. And I do know the distance in between these two, so I'll go ahead and place it on here now. Just go ahead and place a dimension from here to here. And that dimension, we're going to assume off of the sketch, is going to be set to 0.5. Okay, so from here, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of sketch out the little wing parts that are up here at the top. So I'm just going to draw a line from here, go across to here. I'm going to come down. I should get a parallel symbol, which you're going to see when that other one lights up, and then I'll click here because I do want it to stop at that endpoint. Now, it's using that stop as a reference. It's not physically held to it, but it is there. Let's go ahead and start putting a few more dimensions on this, and I'm just kind of walking through this as slowly as I can because I can make it a lot more confusing if I just start, adding as many constraints as I can or kind of trying to create too much of this at the same time. Let's go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Now I can go ahead and mirror this across as well. That is one of those options that I do have available. So I can draw half of this if I want to. But sometimes it's a lot easier just to kind of sketch it out, just to get practice with it. So I'll select that one, hold down the shift button, go ahead and select that one, let go of the shift button, and I'll set those two equal to each other, right? Okay. And we're also going to make these two collinear to each other. So I should have done that while I had them both selected, but I'll go back and select this one. And they're going to be collinear. All right. Also, let's go ahead and put those angles on here. So we're going to do an angle from here to here. And we're going to set this equal to 120. And we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. We're going to put an angle from here to here. And we're going to set that also equal to 120. Okay. Now I can do a few more things to this. I can go ahead and set a dimension from this line here all the way to this point, or this line here. Once again, I'm looking at it and I'm not in the dimension command. So I'll select a dimension from that line there to this one. And this one does have a number of 2.17. Let's go ahead and move this down. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to select these endpoints, and remember you have to hold down the shift button when you're selecting multiple points. Once I let it go, I want all of those to be horizontal to each other, right? So just one quick way of getting all of those horizontal to each other. So the top half of this is actually created and it is done. Let's go ahead and do the bottom half of this. So I'll go ahead and start off with a circle. I'm just going to draw, a line. I'll just draw a line from here. And I'm just going to kind of freehand sketch this. And I know I want it to end here. Let's hit the escape button and let's do that again. So I'll go back to the line command and I'll just kind of, you know, basically kind of create some kind of shape that looks close to it. All right. So there's my kind of weird shape. Let's go ahead and put a few more dimensions on here just so we can get this thing finished. I'll go ahead and put a dimension from, let's go ahead and enact my smart dimensions from this line here to here. This is going to be 4.33. And then we're going to put a distance from here to here. You see it's giving me an angle, so let me hit the escape button. I want these lines to be parallel to each other, so I'll select this line, hold down the shift button and select this one. And this one has a parallel. Okay. Now let's go ahead and put that dimension onto here. So I'm going to select from here to here. And that dimension should be setting at 1.3. Then let's put an angle on here as well. And we do have an angle from here to here. Not in the dimension. Let's go here to here. That's going to be 120. All right, so you can see we got that side done. Now what we're going to do is just add some relations between this one. And hopefully that should help clear up a lot of things. So I'll select this line, hold down the shift button and select this one. Once I let it go, I'm going to first tell it to make them collinear. Then I'm going to also tell them to make it equal to each other. All right, perfect. Hit the escape button here. Let's go ahead and select this line here, hold down the shift button. And then we're just going to make both of these lines parallel. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and specify an angle into here. So we'll do that with a smart dimension. And that's going to be 120. And I was trying to see if there's anything else I need to do. I'm kind of looking at this trying to figure out why did it grow, but I'm just going to pull this back into each other. And I thought I put a dimension on this line here, so let's go ahead and do that now. This has a dimension of 3. All right, now what I like to do is usually test and make sure that this thing is all acting correctly, right? So if I grab one of these points and I try to move this, the whole thing should move. And I'll do that with some of this other stuff around here. So as long as everything moves, that means that it's, you know, fully constrained at this point, except it's missing one point. And I'm just going to kind of rotate this to the side just so you can see the last point that is missing. It's trying to figure it out where it is in reference to this origin. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and select this point here, hold down the shift button, and then go find my origin, which is located here. Let go the shift button, and I'm just going to make those a coincidence. It should snap down to everything, turns black, and then we can exit the sketch. Okay, so now at this point we have satisfied the two things that we need in order to create a sweep, right? We do have a sketch and we do have a profile, right? So we have a closed or joined if you're talking AutoCAD, but we do have a profile and we have a sketch. Or sorry, a path. Let's go ahead and jump over to features. Let's take a look at doing a sweep. And then you can see that it automatically picked up our profile, right? So it said, hey, I took care of your profile. You only have one profile on here. It's waiting on me to pick the path. So if I go ahead and select this line, it should see all of those lines there together. And then if I hit the check mark here, you're going to see that shape created, right? So there's my three-dimensional track that I was referring to earlier. Now, it is a little boxy and blocky. So we can come back into this. Let's go ahead and expand this. And then I'm just going to select this sketch here and go ahead and edit it. And this is what I was saying before. So we don't have that ability to, define this by some kind of curvature. What we can do is go ahead and place a fillet on here, and then I'll go ahead and say, hey, make this fillet a distance of, let's call it 10. And let's see if 10 will work actually. But I think I looked at that in the preview. So yes, so you can see 10 goes across there. It'll go across here. We can go up here at the top. And I'll just select the points to kind of bypass it really quick. And once I select all of these fillets and I hit the check mark, you're going to see that all of those fillets are there. When I hit the edit sketch, it should update this. Let's go ahead and exit out of the sketch. And it should be able to figure that out. So there's our curvature points here as well. Okay. So hopefully you enjoyed taking a look at how to create this three-dimensional sweep. Remember that you're going to always need two things when you're creating a sweep. You're going to need a profile and you're going to need a path. I can't say that enough. Profile, path in order to create a sweep. Okay. So thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you like it. If this is your first time here, you can consider subscribing and liking. And as always, keep drafting until the next video.